Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this webinar on the Mediterranean Wetland Outlook and the Geoportal. Thank you for joining. We will wait a couple of minutes just for everybody to arrive. Thank you very much for making the time. I know everybody is very busy, but I think this will be a very illuminating and useful session to look at this new set of tools and the new Mediterranean Wetland Outlook, which will give us a better understanding, I think, of the wetlands and the state of wetlands around the region, but also providing a new tool to add to the things that we need in order to help conserve wetlands. We do have a simultaneous interpretation today, so please, if you need simultaneous interpretation, there is a globe at the bottom of the screen. Please click on that and select the language that you would like to hear this webinar in. It will be provided with French and English translation, and thank you to Célène for our interpreter, and I will attempt to make sure that we do speak slowly in order for her to be able to do that. So please, yes, do click on that. Donc, en français, si vous avez besoin d'entendre la réunion en français, vous pouvez cliquer sur l'icône globe juste en bas qui est marqué interprétation. Comme ça, sélectionnez votre langue et vous pouvez entendre pendant toute de la réunion en français ou en anglais. Si vous avez des problèmes, s'il vous plaît, mettre dans la boîte chat. Yes, if you have any issues with the interpretation or anything else, then you use that box. We are in our format today so that you won't be able to speak during it unless you're a panelist, but you will be able to put your questions in the chat, and please do so. We will hopefully have some time at the end of the meeting in order to respond to any questions that you might have. So for our session today, we have some introductory remarks which will be given. So the meeting today is run with the Mediterranean Wetlands Observatory, MedWet, the Tour du Valat, and the Union for the Mediterranean. So we will start with some opening remarks from Musonda Mumba, who is the Director General of the Ramsar Convention on Wetlands. Unfortunately, she couldn't join us today, but she sent a very inspirational video, which we will play. A couple of opening remarks from myself and from Alessandra from UFM. Then we'll go into the main part of the session. So we will have Anis Gelmami from the Mediterranean Wetland Observatory, who will talk about the third version of the Outlook. Moving on to Michael Rons, who will talk about the new Geoportal. Finally, some closing remarks, and at the end, the opportunity for you to ask any questions or make any remarks that you would like. So hopefully that is enough on the introduction. I will ask our colleague Clément, who is dealing with the technical aspects of this, and thank you, Clément, to play the introductory message from Musonda Mumba. Over to you, Clément and Musonda.
Dear colleagues, it is an honor to be delivering this video message on the Mediterranean Wetlands Geoportal and the third Mediterranean Wetlands Outlook that was launched during the Convention on Wetlands COP15 last July in Victoria Falls. And I'm sorry I could not be with you in person. Data and information on the extent and the condition of wetlands and their changes over time are critical to inform the actions of governments and other actors to protect, restore, and use sustainably and wisely. High-level scientific data is therefore an essential and urgent prerequisite to maintain wetlands' large array of contributions to people, such as clean water, food, and flood risk reduction, and ultimately to satisfy humanity's current and future needs. The Global Wetland Outlook and the Convention's landmark scientific publication demonstrated in 2025 in cold print that we must invest in our wetlands, which are given an estimated 7.98 trillion to 39.01 trillion in the benefits to people every year. And I think this is an underestimation. In this context, I really commend the work of the Mediterranean Wetland Observatory and the Ramsar Regional Initiative, MedWet. The third Mediterranean Wetland Outlook provides not only new robust data, but also well-communicated data oriented to support decision-making processes. Together with other Ramsar regional initiatives of the globe, MedWet and the Observatory build a network of hubs that promote the preservation and wise use goals at the heart of the Convention on Wetlands and support public policy. Their work is a strong contribution to the newly adopted Fifth Strategic Plan of the Convention and clearly supports and feeds into the work of the Convention's Scientific and Technical Review Panel, the STRP. The third Mediterranean Wetland Outlook and Geoportal is incredibly timely. Countries of the Mediterranean region are not only home to well over 440 Ramsar sites or wetlands of international importance, but also particularly exposed to climate change. A situation further exacerbated by land artificialization and land use changes and also land degradation, as experienced in the Sebkhet Sejouen Ramsar site in the case of Tunisia, for instance. We are grateful for this important knowledge contribution for wetlands of the Mediterranean region, and we are also truly appreciative of the collaboration with the Mediterranean Wetland Observatory. Colleagues from the Mediterranean Wetland Observatory and the Secretariat just came back from the second module of the National Wetland Inventory training in France, which is part of the Secretariat's support mechanism for contracting parties on the completion of national wetland inventories. This support mechanism aims to equip national teams such as Lebanon and Jordan, who are part of the training cohort, and the knowledge and concrete tools to undertake a structured approach for national wetland inventories using Earth observation as a key lever. And I'm particularly happy that this important knowledge is spread widely among contracting parties via the online courses on national wetland inventories accessible to all on the Infomea platform. The Mediterranean Wetland Observatory, Tour du Valat in the Camargue, and the MedWet are key partners in this endeavor of providing countries with concrete tools to preserve our wetlands as a common good. The Mediterranean Wetlands Geoportal, for example, will be essential for countries to use the data collected on the way to a Tier 1 national wetland inventory. Colleagues, we're facing global planetary crises and a multilateral headwind. However, I believe that concrete efforts such as the Mediterranean Wetlands Outlook and its Geoportal pave the way for positive change, and I invite the Mediterranean countries to seize this opportunity to progress effectively on their paths towards resilience. Let us use science to follow the state of our wetlands, to work in sync with local and indigenous communities, drive policy change to restore and to mobilize, to protect and to value wetlands as our common good. I wish you an exciting webinar.
Great, excellent. It's always inspiring to hear from Musonda. She is one of the great, I think, communicators of the world. And she's very excited. When we saw her at the COP15 last year, we really got a sense of how she saw this really helping to push forward the objectives of the Ramsar Convention across the region. So in terms of MedWet and Ramsar, so Ramsar, I guess, is looking at the global approach and MedWet looking at the regional approach for Ramsar. MedWet is the oldest Ramsar regional initiative in the world, and we've been around since 1991, working across the 27 contracting party members around the Mediterranean. My name is Chris Rostron, for those that don't know me, so I'm the coordinator for MedWet. And one of the things that's really exciting for us, I suppose, is that when the Mediterranean Wetland Observatory was first thought of, it was dreamt up by the MedWet partners and organizations in 2008 and is now being run at the Tour du Valat, but still within the framework of MedWet, and within that framework, I guess, of how we're looking at levering, as Musonda says, the objectives of the Ramsar Convention to really support wetland conservation across the region. As you all know, and I don't need to remind you, but the Mediterranean is one of the global biodiversity hotspots, but impacted by all sorts of pressures around the region. It's a testament, I guess, to the fact that people are drawn to wetlands, that people rely on wetlands, that we are seeing increasing pressures from populations around wetlands and around the region. And you will see, you'll hear more from Enis when he talks about some of the statistics around that. The region is 20% more impacted on by climate change than the global average, so already feeling the pressure, but also feeling huge pressures from overuse of water, increasing populations around wetlands, tourism, agriculture, the list goes on. At the last Ramsar COP15, when the Geoportal and the Outlook were announced, it was really welcomed with great excitement by the Secretariat and by the contracting parties from around the region. And really, as Musonda said, it helps to deliver that global approach for the 5th strategic plan for Ramsar, looking particularly at the aspects of good data sharing. It also feeds into the Ramsar's scientific and technical review panel, as well as the global wetland outlook. But we shouldn't forget that although, there's a lot of data in there, there's a lot of information, just having that data on its own is not enough. We just can't carry on looking at how we track the disappearance and degradation of wetlands. And this is really how we're looking at things like the Geoportal, which will help us as an up-to-date online tool to really look at how we can find quick wins, areas where we don't need to put in a huge amount of effort to look at restoring wetlands back to their former quality. So we really hope that as this kind of process carries on, we'll be working with our contracting party members, with our other partners like UFM, to really ensure that this tool and these resources get used where they need to be used. They can be used by all sorts of levels, and the Geoportal will really help people with a practical tool that allows them to deliver wetland conservation on the ground. So I'm going to pass the word over now to our colleagues from the Union for the Mediterranean, and Alessandra, I will invite you to take the floor. Over to you.
Many thanks, Chris. Many thanks, colleagues. It's a great pleasure to be here with you today and continue our path together. Of course, Mediterranean wetlands, as many of you know, and is part of the Union for the Mediterranean agendas, in particular the Ministerial 2021 on environment and climate change and on sustainable blue economy. Both these ministerials, which have been adopted by the 43 Euro-Mediterranean countries, clearly emphasize the need for reliable, harmonized, and quantifiable data, as well as evidence-based decision-making. So these initiatives, like the Wetland Outlooks and Geoportal, are fundamentally aligned with this principle, and indeed provide essential tool for advancing our environmental but also sustainable economy agenda. So this is perfectly aligned with what Musonda said, and we indeed take particular care in being aligned with Ramsar, with CBD, with UNCCC, and of course the Convention on Desertification, to make sure that our regional action ensure convergence around the common priorities, be that political, be that at policy level, thematic, and financial. Again, as I mentioned, this is in line with the work that the UFM has been doing within the Greener Med Agenda and the Sustainable Blue Economy Roadmap, which are two tools and practical tools to ensure the convergence that I was just mentioning. Over the past year, and I'm very pleased about the partnership, of course, with MedWet, Tour du Valat, the Observatory. Over the years, we have been mobilizing technical assistance, as well as organizing together over the past years a series of annual conferences, indeed, to advocate, to create, recreate awareness, and advocate for Mediterranean wetlands to become again a priority for the region. This has, of course, generated a multiplier effect, and many of the regional programs and donors have indeed follow up with dedicated projects and activities. This said, we are in a very important moment in which we are looking at other possible ministerial declaration, the third, both on environment and climate change and on sustainable blue economy, but we are also at the point of advancing the UFM ministerial on water. So also within this ministerial, wetlands will be prioritized. Looking at the very recent events, we were indeed joining forces and calling for the Outlook and Geoportal at COP24 in Cairo. Then we have been, of course, supporting the preparation together also with the CBD itself, the West Project, and other partners, the 7th National Report that was due at the end of February. We are joining forces with the Ecosystem Restoration Decade, and now we are also looking at the upcoming COP31 as the UFM is starting to prepare together with partners for the Med Pavilion. That will be another very important opportunity that we have to share all this common work. I'd like to recall two important opportunities. One is an investment opportunity associated to the Blue Mediterranean Partnership Fund, which has been launched by the UFM together with a series of IFIs and could be of interest for wetlands-related investments. And I'd like also to remind that in April, so next month, we will have two important gatherings. Indeed, the 15th meeting of the UFM Working Group on Environment, where I will be pleased to recall these webinars and its outcome as well as the way forward. And also the upcoming meeting of the UFM focal points on sustainable blue economy, back to back with the launch of the, let's say, exchanges on a potential East Med based on the model of the West Med. Of course, we cannot deny that it's an extremely complex moment for the Mediterranean, and we'll conclude that we are fully aware of it. And it's precisely for this reason that we as a community, as Mediterranean community, want and have to maintain this strong link, this strong dialogue that we have built over the years, and most importantly, and this is a message for all, the trust that we have created indeed to work, to collaborate, and to cooperate. It's not just technical, of course, this maintains us united as a region. So again, thank you very much for this important opportunity to be together and to gather around what matters for our environment, but also for our livelihood. So thank you very much, Chris, and I give you back the floor. I wish you a very nice webinar.
Thank you very much, Alessandra. And yes, totally echo those sentiments. There are a lot of challenges around at the moment, particularly for the region, but I think working together is really the way forward in terms of how we can do better things and combine our energies and activities for wetlands. Brilliant. Thank you, Alessandra. We are now going to head into the main part of the webinar. So I will pass you over to Anis Gelmami from the Mediterranean Wetland Observatory. Anis, over to you.
Thank you, Chris. Let me just share my screen. Okay. Thank you very much, Chris and Alessandra, for the opening word, and thank you also to Masanda, Secretary General of Ramsar of the Convention on Wetlands, for these words. And yeah, so as we said in the introduction, wetlands are home for biodiversity, for one of the largest range of biodiversity in the world. They are also providing key ecosystem services to society and sustaining socioeconomic activities. And the Mediterranean is a hotspot, one of the hotspots, biodiversity hotspot in the world. And this is also thanks to the rich diversity of wetlands we have in the Mediterranean basin. But as we have already discussed in the introduction, these wetlands are also under pressure. They are also facing changes and conversions, climate change impacts. So there is an urgent there's an urgency to react on that, and also to protect them, to restore lost and degraded wetlands. But before going to these actions, we need to have scientific-based information and knowledge in order to have the well-defined actions and responses that could be implemented in order to conserve these wetlands. And this is what we want to share with you today, is the baseline information at the regional scale, at the Mediterranean scale, about the status and trends of these ecosystems, and what are the main pressures and threats they are facing, and how we can respond to these pressures in the different societies in the Mediterranean countries, in order to halt the degradation of these ecosystems, but also to regenerate them and restore those that are already degraded or lost. My name is Anis Gelmami. I am the coordinator of the Mediterranean Observatory, and I'm today very happy to share with you the latest results of this tool. So the Mediterranean Wetlands Observatory is a scientific and technical tool built to consolidate the knowledge on wetland at the regional scale in the MedWet countries. So we analyze the status and trends of these ecosystems. We also encourage political decisions favorable for their protection, restoration, and wise use. And we work also on transferring key messages and recommendations to decision makers, wetland managers, and civil society organizations. And all these recommendations are based on the scientific and technical knowledge that we develop. As Chris was mentioning, the Mediterranean Wetlands Observatory was established in 2008 in the framework of MedWet, and it is run and developed by the Tour du Valat, which is a research institute for the conservation of the Mediterranean wetlands based in France, southern France in Camargue. We work at the observatory at the scale or the level of MedWet countries, so we include all the countries and entities members of MedWet in the region. We develop our knowledge baseline using a set of indicators that fit into a DPSIR framework, meaning that we are working on drivers, pressures, states, impacts, and responses. And the region is also subdivided into 4 sub-regions in order to have a comparable analysis. So we have the Maghreb countries from Morocco to Libya, the Near East countries from Egypt to Turkey, the Mediterranean Balkan countries, and the Southwest European countries, including Malta, with Italy, France, Spain, and Portugal. So the Mediterranean Wetlands Observatory works, as I said, in the framework of MedWet and is developed by the Tour du Valat. We have 3 main components in the development of the Mediterranean Wetlands Observatory. So the first component is the knowledge. So we gather and we produce key information, data, knowledge related to wetlands, not only on wetland extent and ecological parameters or characteristics, but also data related to the pressure that they are facing, like, for example, agricultural or urban pressures, the drivers, such such as climate change. So all this information are collected and centralized at the scale of the Mediterranean basin, and we use them to produce our indicators. So this is the first stage of the development of the Mediterranean Wetlands Observatory. The second stage is the transfer and the capacity building. So we are not working alone. We work also in partnership with many other organizations, pan-Mediterranean organizations or regional organizations, but also sub-regional and national organizations working with different stakeholders and actors on biodiversity conservation, wetland management, environmental monitoring, etc. And we transfer the knowledge baseline to these organizations and partners. And then we have the second or the third stage, which are the targets. So what are our targeted groups in the Mediterranean basin? We work primarily under the framework of MedWet with the national authorities working or dealing with wetland conservation at the national scale. But we are also targeting as a scientific tool the scientific community with the research institute and organizations all over the Mediterranean basin. We work with the civil society organizations, either directly from the Mediterranean Wetlands Observatory or through different organizations and networks at the Mediterranean scale, like the Mediterranean Alliance for Wetland. We target also site managers when we have data collected at the local scale and indicators developed at site scale. So this could be very useful and helpful for site managers in order to improve the management practices, and also with local decision makers. And of course, we have key messages that are also adapted to citizen and public at large. The Mediterranean Wetlands Observatory also is also connected to different frameworks. So in order to have our indicators and key messages aligned with this framework, so we adopted the global agreements framework, for example, the Sustainable Development Goals, the Convention on Biological Diversity, but also, of course, the Ramsar Convention with all the indicators that are recommended by this global frameworks. We are also connected to regional agreements and regional frameworks, such as the Mediterranean Action Plan for under the Barcelona Convention, the Union for the Mediterranean, but also for the European countries. We work also with we try to align our indicators and knowledge baseline with the European frameworks, like, for example, some of the European directive. Key European directives for wetlands, like the Water Framework Directive or Habitat Directive. So we have this, we developed these indicators, as I said, at the regional scale. We have already published two previous reports. The first one was the Mediterranean Wetland Outlook in 2012, which was the first assessment at the regional scale of the status and trends of these ecosystems in the region. The second one was dedicated to the solution for sustainable Mediterranean wetlands. It was published in 2018. And the third one that we have published last year during the Ramsar COP15 in Zimbabwe, Victoria Falls. So this was dedicated also to the responses and how we can better connect the responses in order to preserve and conserve Mediterranean wetlands with the ongoing crisis. So the Mediterranean is facing several crises, starting from climatic crisis, water crisis, but also biodiversity crisis. So how the responses and the solutions that could be bring into the field can also help us to face this crisis. And this is what we will try to share with you today and to discuss today about the key results from this analysis and how we can go forward with this knowledge baseline in order to draft key recommendations at national scales. So this is an overview of the indicators that we have produced and calculated so far for the Mediterranean Wetland Outlook. So we have 17 or 18 key indicators based on several data. We will share with you some of the key results related to this framework. So this framework helps us to connect or to better connect these indicators together, but also to adapt the responses, which is the last component of the DPSIR framework, to adapt the responses to the observations and the results from the other 4 components. So let's start with the drivers, which are the main driving factors affecting the wetlands by producing, for example, pressures. So as you probably know, the Mediterranean region is a region under tension. So we have we estimate that 400 million people live near wetland in the Mediterranean basin. So the population density near wetlands in our region is 4 times higher than the average. We estimate it to 258 habitat in per square kilometer. So which is the highest density that we can calculate depending on the geographical context. For example, it's even higher than the coastal region. We have also another key driver that we have assessed, which is the climate change and the impact of climate change on temperature and precipitation. Based on the different models, we know that by the end of this of the century, the temperature could rise in average from 1.7 degrees to 5.2 degrees, which is a huge difference compared to the reference period. And also the precipitation could decline by 1% to 5% and even to 30% in some arid and semi-arid regions. And it's also this decline in precipitation will also have a huge impact on the wetland hydrology and functions. So these drivers are leading to pressures on wetlands. One of the key pressures that we can identify and affecting Mediterranean wetlands are the development of the intensive agriculture and also the urban sprawl. So these are the trends, the overall trends for all the Mediterranean basin during the last 20 years, or between 2000 and 2020. So as you can see, that built-up areas we observe the largest increase in built-up areas, but also we have a decline in agricultural lands and also a decline in natural drylands, including forests, shrubs, etc. The open surface waters are increasing, and this is related to the construction and development of dams and artificial reservoirs. We will see this in details later. But also we have observed a decline in vegetated wetlands during this time periods. And if we see the trends in the wetland ecosystem, so within the wetland ecosystem, so if we zoom to the functional area of wetlands, we have observed an increase of 44% of built-up areas around wetlands since 2000, and also 30% of the wetland functional area is used for agriculture, including intensive agriculture. So you can see that these two pressures are the key pressures leading to wetland degradation and decline. We have also assessed the pressures on the water resources, because as you know, without water, there is no wetlands, but also without healthy wetlands, there's no clean water. So the connection between the two water resources and wetlands is obvious. That's why we need to also to assess these pressures on the resources. And we have, based on the data and the statistics, we can say that 2/3 of the water abstraction in the Mediterranean is used for irrigation, for agriculture. So it's more than 60% of the water resources available in the region are used for irrigation. And this irrigation or the irrigated lands are also increasing. The area of irrigated lands in the Mediterranean is increasing, especially in countries, for example, in Turkey, in Italy, or in the Arabian Peninsula with Spain. And in the Maghreb countries, in some of the Maghreb countries, we are also observing a very rapid increase of irrigated lands since the last 30 or 20 years. And of course, this water used for irrigation, most of this water will not reach the natural ecosystems, and it will also affect the hydrology and the functioning of these ecosystems, including water-related ecosystems such as wetlands. Based on satellite images, we tried also to assess the trends in the dams and artificial reservoirs during the last years. So what we can observe from this indicator is that the surface area of artificial reservoirs has increased by 25% since 1990. During the last 30 years, we have this very alarming increase of newly built artificial reservoirs and dams, especially in areas or in subregions where the water stress is very, very, very alarming and very high. For example, in northern African countries, or also in the Near East, where we have countries facing very high level or extremely high level of water stress. But also the water abstraction is also accelerating this impact on wetlands. Sea level rise is also another source of threats and pressure on wetlands, and of course here we are talking about coastal wetlands. Based on the models, we estimate that by the end of the century, we are expecting, or we can have a rise of the mean sea level by 0.34 meter to 1 meter of increase, and this will affect the coastal wetlands. And we tried also to understand or to model this impact on coastal wetlands, and we can say that up to 69 to 92% of the coastal marshes could be lost by the end of the century due to sea level rise, especially in countries like, for example, in Algeria, in France, in Spain, or in Egypt, where almost 100% of the coastal marshes could disappear by the end of the century due to the sea level rise. And this is not only related to the climate change impacts, but also to what we have seen earlier with the water abstraction and the dams that are also affecting the hydrology of the coastal watershed and river basins with the decline in sediment supply. So these pressures are affecting wetlands, but before jumping into the impacts on the ecological functions and ecological and ecosystem services of wetlands, we can also see the status or the state of wetlands. So here we have two key indicators related to this DPSIR component. The first one is the wetland extent. So what is what are the trends in the wetland extents in the Mediterranean? Based on a map we have produced at the Mediterranean level called the potential wetland maps, and with crossing this information with existing with the current land use and land cover, we can estimate that historically we have lost 56% of wetlands in the Mediterranean basin. So this is the historical trend, and this trend or this trend this loss is continuing. We estimated just for the last 20 years or 30 years from 1990 that we have lost 12% of the natural wetlands in the Mediterranean, and this loss is affecting the biodiversity hosted by these ecosystems. Based on data on different species and taxa, we estimate that 40% of wetland-related species are in warring conservation stages. However, this trend on species, we have some positive news related to this trend, because we have observed that for water birds, the abundance of species of water bird species has increased by 43% since 1995, and this is mainly linked to the implementation of conservation measures, including the classification of new Ramsar sites and the implementation of some European directives like the Habitat and Bird directives. So what are the impacts of these pressures on wetland ecosystems? The first indicators, impact indicators, is related to the surface water within wetlands. So here we have used also satellite images to assess the trends within natural wetlands and artificial wetlands to see what are the changes in the surface water over the last 3 or 4 decades. So since 1984, we have observed that 12% of the permanently flooded inland wetlands has disappeared, and 10% in temporary flooded coastal in the temporary flooded areas in coastal lagoons. So we are losing the surface water, or the surface water is declining in many natural inland and coastal wetlands, and this is affecting this trend is also affecting the ecosystem services provided by these wetlands, but also the biodiversity that is hosted in these ecosystems. In the last 3 decades, wetland habitats conversion has also increased and has been accelerating in many of the countries. The main conversion of habitat is to agriculture. So we have observed that 54% of the conversions of wetland conversions, natural wetland conversions, are into agricultural lands, and 36% into artificial wetlands. And here we mean by artificial wetlands mainly reservoirs, dams, and ponds. So these conversions are the key trends affecting the wetland habitats, the loss of wetland habitats, in addition to the conversion into built-up areas. Another important impact on wetlands is the ecological continuity and river fragmentation. So based on the data that we have analyzed, we can say that 95% of the total length of major rivers in the Mediterranean is impacted by fragmentation elements or fragmentation component, and this is affecting the ecological connectivity of rivers and also the riverine wetlands and downstream wetlands that depend on the river flows, both for water and sediment supply. So the last component of our DPSIR analysis is the response. So what are the key responses and solutions that could be implemented at the regional scale, but also at national and local scale, in order to reverse these trends and better protect wetlands and enhance their ecosystem services? We have the protection as a key response. We estimate, based on our data on wetland extent and the protection areas, that 36% of the Mediterranean wetland habitats are protected. It doesn't mean that they are saved and safeguarded and a good protection level. It just means that this habitats are covered by a protection status. So sometimes this protection status are not very high. They are just some designations on paper, but it's a good step to implement before going to higher protection levels. We have also used the Ramsar criteria for the designation of new Ramsar sites, mainly the criteria on waterbirds. And based on this criteria, we discovered that 161 key wetland for waterbird have yet to be designated as Ramsar sites. So they can be designated, they can be added to the Ramsar list in these countries, but they are not yet designated. We can also talk about restoration. It's something that we are now promoting and advocating for, that it's good to conserve, to protect existing wetlands, but we can also look at the degraded or even the lost wetlands and propose recommendations to regenerate or rehabilitate or recover this degraded and lost wetlands. Now, based on the analysis that we have conducted for the northern countries of the Mediterranean, from Portugal to Turkey, we estimate that 88,000 square kilometers of lost wetland habitats could be restored with low effort, with moderate to low effort. It means that these wetlands have been converted or transformed into other land uses and land occupation, and this transformation is reversible, and we can recover some of these habitats. And we have now maps showing these areas where we can start or initiate restoration actions or recovering lost wetland habitats in all the countries from Portugal to Turkey. And this habitat, this mapping process will continue for the rest of the Mediterranean countries. Wetland management is also key solution and key response to provide. So based on the information we get from the Ramsar report, we have only a third of the 440 Ramsar sites with the management plan fully implemented in the Mediterranean countries. And you have here the percentage per country. So there are many efforts to do for some countries in order to develop management plan, but also implement this management plan on the ground. So it's good to designate new Ramsar sites, but it's even better to manage these Ramsar sites with development and implementation of management plan. Wetland contracts is also a good solution that we can identify, and we have identified so far. So these contracts are particularly effective tools for sustainable and integrated management of wetland ecosystems in the Mediterranean. They are already well advanced and implemented in two main countries, in Italy and France. Some other countries have already adopted this approach for a set of wetlands, like in Slovenia, Croatia, Portugal, Spain, and Morocco, and Lebanon as well. Other countries are in the signing process. But we think that this approach could be also promoted and replicated in many other countries, and even within the same countries in many additional wetland sites. And the sustainable use of water resources could also be identified as key solutions, because as we have seen earlier, that water and wetland management and conservation are interconnected. there are some indicators showing that the water efficiency is not very high in many countries. So we can advocate for a better water use or an integrated management of water resources at the basin scale, for example. And this could be one of the key responses and solutions for the sustainability of water resources, but also to improve the health and the functioning of wetland ecosystems and the ecosystem services they provide. So to conclude, based on all this overall analysis and indicators, we have identified 5 key levers for actions for the future. So the first one is to reconcile the spatial planning with wetlands, because we've seen that wetland conversion is still the key drivers of wetland loss in the Mediterranean, especially when it comes to agricultural development, but also to urban sprawl. Making water policy a cross-cutting lever. So when we develop policy and water-related plans and frameworks, we should also integrate wetland management and wetland conservation in this within these frameworks. Accelerating ecological restoration. This is key lever to push for the future, because restoration could be also one solution to enhance the resilience of the Mediterranean regions. Strengthening governance and regional coordination based on the existing networks through MedWet or through the other regional network that exists. So we need also to strengthen this governance at the regional scale, and work also on the capacity building of partners even at the subnational scales, at the local scale. And also, we can encourage the city, the local initiatives and the local civil society organizations to support the implementation of the different actions and different recommendations from the Mediterranean Wetlands Observatory, but also from other organizations and networks such as MedWet. And to conclude, this analysis, as we have seen, are based on the regional scale. So most of the indicators that we have developed and shared with you are already available in our report and are aggregated at the basin scale. And now we are working on downscaling all these indicators at the national scales for each of the MedWet countries. And this information or knowledge baseline at the national scale will also help us in the future to develop key messages and recommendations tailored to each of the national contexts in the MedWet countries. And this is also one of the objectives of the Mediterranean Wetlands Geoportal that we will see later with my colleague Michael. So thank you very much for your attention, and I'm looking forward for your questions later. To you, Chris.
Great. Thank you very much, Anis. A very thorough piece of work there, producing some quite startling statistics in there. But yeah, very, very useful to have. And if anyone has questions, I see there are a couple in the chat box already, or in the question and answer box. Please do add your questions and we will attempt to address those at the end of the session. We'll now pass you over to Mikhail, who will talk a bit more about the Geoportal. Mikhail, over to you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chris. Try to share my screen. I believe you see my screen now.
Yep, we do. Yep.
Yes.
Perfect.
Great. Just a moment. There you go. All right. Hello, everyone, and thank you, Anis, for this presentation. My name is Michael Rons. I'm the task officer for the Mediterranean Wetlands Observatory. And just before I start, I was checking it a couple of minutes ago, and there's more than 90 participants today that are connected from, I guess, many different countries, backgrounds, and organization. And that's why I want you to ask yourself, how often do you need reliable wetland data and knowledge in your work, and how often do you just end up with something that is scattered out data or just locked away in a PDF? If this is too often, this is exactly what we had in mind when we started to think about this geoportal and how also we end up developing it. But the portal I'm about to introduce you is just not another map viewer where all the data will be and layers will be dumped together. No, and especially when I look to the presentation that Anis just did, I think it's also an opportunity to realize that this portal is the results of 15 years of experience, where at the Mediterranean Wetlands Observatory we've been tracking trends and status of Mediterranean wetlands, producing, collecting, fetching data and scientific knowledge. And not only about wetlands themselves, but also about the wider socio-ecological context that they represent, meaning that we also take a look at what agriculture, water management, pollutions, climate change, and more, as you've seen in the presentation, can play a role in adding pressures on wetlands. And now, thanks to updated technologies, harmonized indicators, and regional to local data, we knew that it's time to go one step further and to deliver this information, as Anis just explained, at the scales where actions happens, which means national and local scale, in a format that is usable, accessible, but also tailored for decision making. And therefore, instead of just developing reports, we want this data behind the analysis to be available and visible. So over the past 3 years, our team has been working to develop this new digital tool, the Mediterranean Wetlands Geoportal. And we don't want it to be our tool. We want it to be clear. We want it to be every Mediterranean wetlander's tool, because we want it to be adaptive, scalable, and evolving. So today, I want to show you how this platform can support your work and how your involvement can make it even stronger, because this geoportal is really an invitation to collaborate, to contribute, and to shape a shared future for sustainable Mediterranean wetlands. So the goal was is quite simple. The idea is that we want to provide easy access to relevant data on wetland status, pressures, and trends, and to integrate wetlands into policies and monitoring at all scales. This will be done by centralizing this data into that platform and bridging regional insights and data with national and local realities. We also want to support decision-making with tailored indicators for Mediterranean countries to prioritize conservation, restoration, and also meet international commitments like Ramsar and SDGs. We want this platform to boost collaboration and data sharing between governments, between scientists and civil society for regional cooperation. And eventually, we want to raise awareness on wetlands importance, on conservation challenge, and we aim to engage broader public over time. Who is this for? We believe it can help governments, agency, and technical staff designing new policies and strategies, integrating wetlands. But it can also provide very useful information for site managers, protect area authorities, but as well as scientists and researchers which already produce and use data for monitoring and assessment, but where they will be also able to find and share their own knowledge. And eventually, it's also helpful for NGOs and civil society working on wetland restoration, advocacy, and awareness. What will it offer, and why is it useful? It will be definitely user friendly. We don't want it to be too complicated. And as I said, this will not be fixed. We want it to be evolving. So it will centralize the access to georeference data across time and space. It will also, as I already said, support knowledge sharing, facilitate data management and use. Yeah, we really want it to be collaborative. So we want it we need your users' feedback, we need contribution. So that's why in the development, we made sure that it is flexible and adaptable to changes, to make sure that the data and knowledge that we upload in it will eventually end up in hands where actors can make a change. How does it work? User will have the opportunity to navigate at both at two entry points, which the one is the national scale. At a national scale, you'll have the ability to navigate from across different indicators, which will display with maps different charts, different key numbers, and you will be also able to play with the different layers, to hide them, to zoom, change the background, to really match your needs. And eventually, we will also make sure that you obviously have the ability to reach the metadata, which will give you insights on methodology, on who's providing the data. And if you require more information on those data, it will all be also possible thanks to this metadata fact sheet. And eventually, this is also an objective we have, is to develop synthesis at the country scale, which will summarize the status and trends of wetlands, thanks to the different indicators we use. This will be also available and downloadable. And as I said, there's a second entry point, which is the local scale. So for the past 10 years, I think, at the Mediterranean Wetland Observatory, we've been monitoring wetland sites, more than 400 different wetland sites, where we also have, we assess different parameters and indicators that will be also available with high resolution and accurate data. And this will be also give the opportunity to download fact sheet for those specific sites. Regarding the different expected impacts of this new digital platform, we really hope that it will facilitate the implementation of international commitments like Ramsar, like SDGs, and other national biodiversity strategies, facilitating the reporting and offering a uniform platform for tracking progress and obligation over time. We believe it will also highlight the role of wetlands, either in climate change, in climate resilience, in biodiversity and livelihood, but it will then raise visibility on threats and conservation efforts across the region. As another expected impact would be that it will support data collection and production and foster country collaboration across the Mediterranean for better Mediterranean wetland knowledge and data sharing. And eventually, it will strengthen dialogue and support planning for priority protection and restoration sites. I prepared a small video showing and teasing you on the Geoportal. Yeah, it should be on now. So the user will end up on the portal with some information in this pop-up. Will you have also a tutorial available giving you all the information to facilitate the navigation. On the left panel, you'll have all the different countries with all the different indicators that are available. And for the example, I choose Italy, where we can zoom in. And as I said, you have 2 entry points, national indicators and monitoring sites, and the different indicators that are accessible through the left panel. For the sake of this presentation, I choose one indicator that is already available, water stress and uses. And as you can see, it will display different maps with also obviously the legend that explain what you can see in the map viewer. And you can play with the legend, you can play with the layers, obviously. You can, as I said, hide them, turn them on, zoom in, zoom out. You will see, and and the legend will also adapt across according to it. You will be also able to change the base maps. This is very convenient, especially if you work at a local scale, because you will be able to compare overlapping information with what you get in reality, especially with satellite images. This is very convenient. And on the right side, this is just an example, but you'll have different charts. This is displayed as a dashboard, so different charts, different key numbers that summarize sometimes the information you are looking at on the maps, but also adding complementary information for these indicators. And you can play with them as how you want it. There's a tab on the up right corner which gives you the opportunity to step back and recover the Mediterranean map. We provide the Geoportal in 2 languages at the moment, English and French, and you can step back also to get more information if you need with the tutorial. And as I said, there's also the availability to zoom in the different wetland monitored sites that we track at the Mediterranean Wetlands Observatory with the different indicators that we provide. And again, you have the ability to play with the different layers. And I don't know if it has been mentioned yet, but we expect to release the final version and to share it publicly by the end of May and or even early June. And I thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Michael. That's a really exciting tool, and obviously a huge amount of work and effort over many years has been put into doing this, as well as, you know, a massive amount of research, remote sensing, reliance on reports. And as you say, you know, this is something I think that will really benefit from an ongoing relationship with our country members and with other partners that will help to continue to feed this and make it an even more useful tool. So just to sum up, we do want to leave time for questions. I see there are questions in the quick Q&A already, but please do add questions and we will come to those shortly. From the Mediterranean Wetland Outlook, there's quite some startling figures coming out there. The impacts of climate change and the impacts of humans means that we could end up losing, in some cases, you know, virtually all of our coastal wetlands. the loss of wetlands and that image, I think, of Dayet Aour, the lake in Morocco, disappearing over time is really something that should bring our attention to the fact that we are still facing massive issues around the loss of wetlands and around the loss of the quality of wetlands as well. So we can see, you know, that we're not going to stop humans living in and around and using wetlands, but we really want to see, I guess, opportunities to move towards what Ramsar would call the wise use of wetlands. So respecting the fact that wetlands provide us with huge amounts of services, and that if we are going to benefit from those, we need to be protecting them more. There are, I guess, some nice examples and some positive stories of things that are happening. So, for example, you know, the protection of certain wetland species has led to them improving, the increase of Ramsar sites, for example. But again, unless we have those actively implemented, then they just remain on paper. So how, you know, can we move from some of this excellent protection and intention to something which results in positive and practical applications on the ground? I think from what we can see in the Geoportal, and yeah, we have a few questions on that already in the chat. It's meant to be something that's practical. As Michael said, it's meant to be something that's helping you as practitioners or decision makers or policy makers really improve what we can deliver for wetlands. So it works at many different levels. And this idea of an open access tool, which is regularly updated, is really a powerful thing that I think will really support what we're trying to do for wetlands around the region. And the figure of 88,000 kilometers of habitats that could be relatively easily restored is a really positive one, and seems to me that that's something that we should really push. Looking at how with little effort we can actually contribute to improving those wetlands and seeing the benefits that will come back. Once wetlands are restored, it's relatively quick to see them start to function as natural systems, providing all the benefits that we are used to seeing from those wetlands. I'm not going to keep this too long because we want to get to questions, so I will pass over to Adriana from UFM, who will give some closing remarks. Adriana, if you could keep them brief, that would be much appreciated. Over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Just before we skip into the Q&A. So yes, just very briefly on behalf of Alessandra, my name is Adriana Salazar. I work as Sustainable Blue Economy Expert at the Secretariat of the UFM in Barcelona. So first of all, I mean, although we'll skip to the Q&A, just to say that we hope we found today's sort of flash format webinar as informative and useful as we have. I mean, these are really precious occasions to sort of get together, to share, to distill the very rich information that is contained in reports such as the NWO3. In many ways, I think Agnes said it all, but particularly relevant to the UFM, of course, and an area that we were especially, you know, attentive to has been the data that has been presented at the regional scale, and we'll, of course, all have the chance to delve deeper into that. But I think Agnes already gave us a very useful flash list, let's say. As Alessandra mentioned earlier on, of course, wetland conservation and restoration do play an important role across several UFM dossiers. Of course, environment and water, but also sustainable blue economy, linking to coastal wetlands and lagoon ecosystems. Of course, sustainable blue economy focuses on the sustainable development of marine and maritime activities, but the UFM framework, of course, also encompasses, let's say, the land-sea continuum, the land-sea interaction principle. So indeed, again, the principles of circularity, of climate neutrality, ecosystem-based approaches, multi-stakeholder approaches, interdisciplinary approaches, integrated approaches, and governance, linking also to the needs of coastal communities, really cut across the UFM's work on environment, green economy, and also on sustainable blue economy. And I think it's clear that these are all principles that are vital for sound wetland governance. Just to recall, as a something important that, if anything, that we would like today's participants to retain, of course, the relevant framework here are the twin 2021 at UFM level, 2021 UFM ministerial declarations, on the one hand on environment and climate action and on sustainable blue economy, adopted by the 43 member countries. Of course, they provide the framework, let's say, for the so-called 2030 Greener Med Agenda and the UFM Roadmap on Sustainable Blue Economy, which are, let's say, the operational arm of these ministerial declarations, bringing together, countries, observers, experts, of course, meeting on a regular basis in order to drive these roadmaps and these ministerials forward. As Alexandra mentioned, on sustainable economy, the next, let's say, milestone occasion will happen very soon here in Barcelona in mid-April, where the 19th UFM regional platform on sustainable blue economy will meet back-to-back with the next steering committee of the Blue Mediterranean Partnership, which Alexandra mentioned, the Blue Economy Fund, let's say, that will also keep, let's say, making progress, and we'll meet here in Barcelona. And we'll be sure, of course, to bring the outcomes of today's webinar to the regional platform. Just to recall, enshrined within the 2021 UFM Ministerial on Sustainable Blue Economy and of the roadmap for its implementation, among the key priorities are, of course, governance, integrated coastal zone management, sustainable food from the sea, sustainable tourism, blue finance, research and innovation, evidence-based decision-making, skills, careers, and jobs, and capacity building. Again, all relevant, all vital for sound, or to support, all vital levers to support healthy wetlands and wetlands that are capable of delivering on the ecosystem services that they can and should deliver. Just to close, maybe just to point towards the importance at UFM level, certainly, of continuing to capitalize results, to promote the scaling up and replication of innovative and successful initiatives across the Mediterranean. We spoke about this several months ago as far as wetland contracts, for instance, so it was really a real pleasure to join you there. And for this, of course, sound and interoperable data is essential. But also data that is, let's say, primed for evidence-based decision making. This is, of course, where MWO comes in, but this is also where the UFM comes in, and also in terms of ensuring that we continue to share best practices, that we continue to share experiences, know-how at basin level across the Mediterranean, encompassing also the Balkans, because many of the Balkan countries are also UFM member countries, in terms of supporting the North-South regional dialogue. And I think, today's webinar is in a way an example of this as well. So with this, just to say it was a pleasure to join you. Many thanks, Chris, MWO, also Tour du Valat for the excellent collaboration. We look forward, of course, to our continued partnership, and we'll also be, of course, at the ready to support the visibility and dissemination of MWO3 and of the Geoportal through our, let's say, relevant platforms and wide stakeholder networks. So with this, I think it's wise that we move to the Q&A. Back to you, Chris. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Adriana. Yeah, very useful to have that. Anis, I don't know if you want to add a final word before the Q&A. Over to you.
No, Chris. I think we can jump directly to the Q&A, and
Perfect.
I think that all was said regarding the stages, but also the different frameworks and linkages that we can have with MedWet, UFM, and other networks. So yeah, I think we can directly jump to the Q&A.
Let's do that. Yeah, we have 10 minutes left to us. First question, will this presentation be available? We are recording this, so the recording of it will be available. Anis, Mikhail, in terms of your presentations, how available are those? Over to you.
Yes, I confirm that both presentations will be available soon after the webinar, and we can share with all the participants through the registration information.
Great.
I just put also on the chat. I don't know if we can share it also with all the participants, the links to the MWO3 reports in French and English, because I think that it wasn't available in the presentation. So yeah, you can share also the link to download the reports.
Great. Yeah, we will share those links for sure. Yeah, that is good. A question from Imad Kama from Palestine. Artificial agricultural pond with capacity of around 180,000 cubic meters. Could this be considered as a wetland area? I'm going to pass that one to Anis.
Definitely, yes. Yeah, this is according to the Ramsar definition of wetland ecosystems, artificial or human-made wetlands, including agricultural ponds, are considered as human-made wetlands in the classification. And that's what we are also integrating in the Mediterranean Wetlands Observatory. We use the Ramsar definition and we consider them as artificial wetlands. So yeah, the map that I have shown earlier on the artificial reservoirs and dams in the Mediterranean, it includes also small ponds and tanks used for agriculture.
Great, excellent. Thank you very much. Are you planning a similar study to the one you did in Northern Mediterranean in South and East coasts? Pass that to Anis.
Yes, we are currently doing this analysis for the southern part of the Mediterranean. I guess the question is related to the restoration potential map that I have shared in my presentation. So this potentially restorable wetlands map is available for the northern countries from Portugal to Turkey. And currently we are working on developing the same assessment and analysis for the southern and eastern countries of the basin. So yeah, it will be available soon and integrated into the Geoportal by the end of May.
Great, excellent. That sounds good. Has there been a case where urban and land planning has contributed in removing built environments from previous wetlands? Does wetland regeneration work? That is a big question. Yeah, Anis, what do you think?
I think, yes, we have highlighted this, the regeneration or recreation of wetlands within urban context or urban environments. So this is something that is already happening in some cities, in some urban areas, but it's not let's say it's not the tendency. So the trend is to regenerate lost wetlands within agricultural environments because it's easier in terms of implementation and technical feasibility is easier. And even the restorability map that I have shown with the different classes of restoration efforts is based on this, how much effort in terms of resources, money, etc., we can put in restoring wetlands depending on the type of land use, the current land use, or the type of conversion that we have observed. And basically, conversions or transformation into agricultural lands is easier, or the plasticity or the reversibility is higher than transformation into a gray infrastructure built up or other gray infrastructure. So definitely we can do the restoration in urban environments, but it's costly and it needs more efforts.
Definitely,
but it's feasible.
Yeah, it's doable. I guess it's about finding the level of barriers that exist and working around those. But yeah, that's useful. Imad asked if the presentations are shareable. Yep, we've answered that. They will be available after. And you should see in the chat box now the links to download the report if you need it. So please do check that. Pilar, hello Pilar, is there any layer to differentiate coastal wetlands? I'm going to mix this up and ask Michael to answer that one, just to give Anis a rest. Michael.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Anis was mentioning the Ramsar definition, and in the reporting obligation, countries have to differentiate coastal to inland and artificial wetlands. So definitely we have those layers available, and they will be definitely displayed in the Mediterranean Wetland Geoportal.
Excellent, great, thank you for that. A question on when will it be available? I think, as Michael said, late May or June is when the Geoportal will be available. So yet not long to wait for that. Now, a question from Nicola Russolo. Thanks for the presentations. The Geoportal, it will not be possible to have the national indicators at the regional Mediterranean scale. Michael, I guess that's for you. Will it not be possible? It says, yeah.
It is possible, actually, but the idea we had in mind when displaying the different indicators is to focus at the country scale and the local scale. But you can definitely switch from one country to another, and eventually you can reach us if you want to get more data and if you require Mediterranean those indicators at the Mediterranean scale for different purposes. So definitely some indicators and most of the indicators will be available at the regional scale. I hope this was the question and I answered it.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that was good. Another one from Imad. Can you share with us the fact sheet that we will have to fill in during visiting and documenting the wetland area? Michael, for you.
Not sure I did get that correctly. Are you for the fact sheet, visiting and documenting the wetland area? Don't know if I get that correctly. Are you maybe Anis, did you get that correctly?
Yeah, I think Imad is referring to the fact sheet on the indicators available for at the national scale. So
Okay.
yes. We will in the Geoportal you will have, or the users will have the possibility to download fact sheets for each indicator, but also a fact sheet summarizing the indicators at the national scale. So for each country, MedWet country, the user can have a summary fact sheet of all the indicators calculated at the national scale with key numbers and figures.
Great. Okay, hope that answered the question. Gabriela asked, what technology did you use to implement the Geoportal? Question is it MapStore?
It is not MapStore for now. It's a commercial tool, which comes from Esri, the Esri suite. So it's commercial at the moment.
Okay, good to hear. So Abderrahim Badrawi asks, brief point to discussion, collaborative platform could further strengthen these efforts by combining data. It's important to develop localized monitoring systems. It's true. Systems could track indicators such as water quality, water levels, etc. This would help detect early signs of degradation and support more responsive and adaptive management at the local level. So I guess that's more of a statement. I don't know if you guys would like to respond.
Yeah, I think it's what Abraham was mentioning is that this platform could help also to strengthen the implementation of the Ramsar Convention through the MedWet initiative. So yes, definitely, and this is one of the key purpose of this platform, and also the Mediterranean Wetlands Observatory is to support the implementation of the Convention on Wetlands at the regional scale, national, but also local scales.
If I can add something also, Anis, we know that there's strong interest in sharing available data at the local sites, at a local scale for specific sites. It's important to understand that the way we display the data and the knowledge we have has to be in a standardized way. So we cannot definitely adapt to the capacity, to each capacity in terms of monitoring, in terms of gathered data for us, for each specific site. However, feel free to reach us. I mentioned that there is more than 400 monitored sites at the moment, but it is an evolving list. So feel free to reach us and to share the data you have, the monitored data, and we will make sure it can be displayed in the portal as well.
Perfect. We have 1 minute left, I'm afraid. So we have slightly run out of time for any further questions, but we will note them and respond to them individually. There are some detailed ones in that. But I think for the rest of them, we can probably respond to those later.
Okay, maybe I can answer one question related to the main actors that we are working with at the Mediterranean Wetlands Observatory. So for the technical development, we work mainly with scientists and research organizations, but also with the civil society organizations in the different countries. And the targeted group, our key or main target group is the national authorities, not only the Ramsar authorities or Ramsar related ministries and authorities, but also other national authorities and institutions. So this is the key target group. Of course, we are also targeting other actors and other stakeholders, but the national authorities are the main target of the Mediterranean Wetlands Observatory, which is also the same for MedWet.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Great. So apologies, we have come to the end of our session now. Thank you very much, everybody, for your active participation and your questions. Very useful. Thanks to the team from Mediterranean Wetlands Observatory and the Tour du Valat. Thank you to Clément from Tour du Valat for technical assistance. Thank you, Selene, for the interpretation too. And for UFM as well, obviously one of the key partners with this, and very helpful to have your active participation now and obviously in the long term. We will share some of these recordings with you all, so we have all of your details. So a follow-up email will arrive with details of the reports, the links to information you might need, and to the presentation and the session itself. So thank you very much, everybody. Really useful and illuminating examples of how we can develop this tool and how we can use it across the region for wetlands. So let's carry on working together for wetlands around the Mediterranean. Thank you very much, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.